none, I'll open the meeting once again to hear persons present.
Brian Phelan, Woodland Road. I am still concerned that as a township committee, we have potentially jeopardized the success of any shared services as a result of what appears to be the action of a single individual as compared to a committee. I've not heard from anyone. I'm somewhat disappointed that Mr. Creed's recommendation was totally ignored by Mr. Merck, by Mrs. Thomas, by Mayor Trippettini, and Mr. Tolley. He asked the question, is this a township committee decision, or is this a mayor decision in how we communicate with our communities, how we provide leadership, and when we have disagreements, how that leadership skill works through the process as compared to 5 mayors, not one individual, 5 individuals who have an opinion about this township. And I'm assuming now it includes every single committee member, because you have not spoken on the issue. Every time I in the past have asked for a comment from another member of the committee, I've been advised by your attorney that's inappropriate. A citizen cannot ask a committee member who's elected what their opinion is. We are jeopardizing shared services. In my opinion, we lost an opportunity for a joint library as an action not by this committee, but an action of one individual. We have an open opportunity to discuss shared services. Nowhere during this meeting, after I brought that up, was it even discussed. Mr. Tolley says that he's had discussions that seem to be appropriate, where we are having meaningful discussions with Neil Henry. I know that's not true. I spoke with Neil Henry yesterday. Yes, Mr. Tolley, you can frown as long as you want, but I know for a fact. I've talked to every single mayor. The mayor of the Chesters, the mayor of the township, borough, and they all are concerned, and they themselves have asked for someone else to represent this township committee. They've asked. So what do we do as a committee? Totally ignore the request of the other mayors and totally ignore the request by Mr. Creed. Now, more than likely, when I sit down, you'll say thank you for your comments, and there'll be no discussion on your part relative to what it is that I've said. Somewhat disappointing as for elected officials.
June Trippettini, 6 Lane. I hadn't intended on speaking on behalf of the library tonight, but we know we had 3 floods during my 2.5 years or so on the tenure at the library, and I don't know what happened in Irene. We had a little tiny trickle in the children's library that was mopped up with some towels. By some miracle, for once, the library did not flood in an unprecedented situation. So I don't know if it had to do with cleaning out of that one storm drain, a couple of little sandbags by the back doors that are underground, but we're happy to say no floods in the library during this problem.
Don't jinx it, June.
So.
Rick Blood, 32 Tingley Road. I have a couple questions about obviously this letter came out late last week, and how this came to be. Obviously there's been planned discussions between the mayor representing the township and then the other mayors of the other surrounding townships. And it sounded like at least what I'm getting from the letter that was written by the mayors, that the point of this meeting was to have kind of a closed-door discussion on moving forward with the discussions of the schools in general. Was the mayor directed or advised by the township to bring a non-elected official to this meeting that was, except for other school board members, going to be attended by only elected officials? I'm trying to figure out, was there a discussion or direction that instructed the mayor, as just one of the 5, to take this stand or this approach with this committee that was obviously put together to discuss some very difficult issues, because this has been going on a very long time. One of the other things that came up was the newspaper story just came out. I would expect that in new business this would have been discussed, and then a solution or a recommendation would have been made that may have come to what the mayor had proposed at the beginning of the meeting before any public discussion was taken. So I can only assume that either the mayor is making this on his own, or there are discussions going on behind the scenes in which a majority of the committee is advising the mayor that this is a good idea, let's go forward, it's a good strategy, let's break off negotiations, and we're going to create our own bully pulpit here in the township, and we're going to tell the other 4 towns how they're going to do this, because we have somehow have a higher authority or a greater voice over this issue. I would like to see some collective leadership from the committee. This is a committee form of government. If the mayor's doing a great job, I'd like to hear each of you tell us that during new business, because this is a new business issue since the letter just came out prior to a previous meeting, that these are the direction we want to take. But it sounds like there's something quietly going on that is giving the mayor authority to represent all of us here and in the township, as well as all of you, as to what strategy he has decided is best for what I can only assume is the township committee. Thank you.
Thank you. I will state for the record that I have had no discussion with any member of the township committee on any of these subjects, nor has approval or my opinion been requested by the mayor on any of this. He is, as far as I can tell, and what I'm being told by the mayors, other mayors, he's on his own. Thank you.
Dennis Deegan, at least hopefully temporarily 12 Summit Road. I almost can't believe what I hear when I come here to most meetings. And I've done my best not to say anything at the first session, and I thought I could get through the whole meeting, but unfortunately I just can't. What I find most surprising about all of this is that apparently what I hear when I come to all these meetings is not what everybody else hears when either they're not here or they hear secondhand about what has happened. What I've heard is that the proposal is to have a transparency and a process dealing with the schools and what should take place potentially in the future that's different than what has taken place in the past. That's what I think I've been hearing when I've been here for, I think, every meeting for almost 3 years. Obviously, I didn't hear that going back to the 3-year period going back. And one of the things I find really, really surprising and almost comical is that we have a former member of the Township Committee who gets up, who was on that committee for 15 or 18 or some ungodly length of time, who claims that now is the reason that we're at fault for not doing anything about shared services. I'm sorry, I should not get up and say something like that, but that's what I find. And the other thing I find absolutely amazing is that individuals who were previously on the committee, and at least one person on the committee, who throws out the word of leadership, talking about leadership here and leadership there, and this person should show leadership, and et cetera, about leadership, when the very fact of what those individuals are discussing shows absolutely no understanding for what leadership is. So I apologize for getting up and making my comments, but I just have had a hard time sitting here, listening to what people had to say, having sat here for every meeting for a long period of time, and especially every meeting this year, and especially every meeting dealing with the whole high school issue, and the board issue, and the other mayors, and also weaving into that the understanding that status quo just about no one wants to change status quo. To get people to make change is the hardest thing in the world, because human nature doesn't want to make change. And one of the things that I see going on here is that this committee, not maybe every single member of this committee, but my understanding the majority of this committee, is attempting to affect change with the high school, with the funding, with the whole structure, potentially the whole structure. And that is not something that every other mayor in every other town or every other individual involved with education wants to see. And for people in this town to not realize that that's upsetting some people's power bases, and that there's going to be a challenge in fighting going on because of that attempt, I also find absolutely crazy. But sorry, thank you for your time. Good night.
One comment. It's a necessary process of democracy, and we understand that, but I believe this township committee is trying to understand the will of its constituents, and that's our goal.
Mayor, I was faulted last year for not responding to the public or listening to the public. I've heard the same theme of questions coming to this committee this evening, and they have not been answered. I would appreciate it if I want to listen to the public. I feel the public has spoken very clearly tonight. And I would like to see you respond to the public on some of the questions Mr. Blood asked and some of the questions Mr. Phelan, and I can go through all the names in the audience. I think they're entitled to a response.
Take it under consideration, Mr. Creed.
That's the technical answer.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard?
This is a follow-up to that. Why is it that we cannot hear on whether or not what's being done is supported by Mr. Merck, Mrs. Thomas, Mr. Tolley, and Mr. Creed? Why can they not speak on this issue? I don't understand why they remain silent. Because it is the perception that Mr. Ciopatini is running the show without any knowledge by the other members of this committee. And I think it's time for them to speak up, not you, Mr. Mayor, but them to say, I concur with what has been done. I concur with the action that Mr. Ciopatini brought a representative other than what he should have thought himself. I don't concur with the mayors requesting another representative. Total silence. And I would like to know if you will let them respond to my question. Let them speak on this issue then. Will you let them do that? Do I have to ask them, Mr. Turner? Can I not direct the question, or will you tell me once again that as elected officials, they don't have to answer to the residents of this community?
My remark, Mr. Phelan, was that you are here, as are other members of the public, to make public commentary, not to play Jeopardy and grill the members of the dais about their positions on certain things. However, should a member of the committee wish to make a comment, that's fine, but I'm not going to sit here and have you interrogate them.
I'm not interrogating them. I'm just asking a simple
They
question.
are not precluded
I'm not
to make a
interrogating them.
comment.
I'm not interrogating them. So therefore, based upon what the attorney has just said, is any other member of this committee willing to share with the community what their thoughts are on how the Township of Mendham is proceeding on the various issues that face us as a community with the rest of the communities that are surrounding us? Does anyone else wish to comment? As elected officials, do you wish to comment? I doubt that any of them will answer the question.
Unbelievable.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan.
And we voted for these people.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr.
I would
Jones.
just like to again reiterate the conversation I had with Mr. Henry, which has been called to question by a valued member of this community, and assure you the conversation did occur, and that this committee is moving in a positive direction, not a negative one.
That's not true. That's a fact.